For those of you that don't know me, I'm Grooved Slick. And for those of you that do know me, I'm still Grooved Slick. I've been on iRacing for about 10 years now, and I've been racing the Porsche Cup series for the past few seasons. This mimics the Real World series that has produced some of the best GT drivers in the world, and in iRacing, the same holds true. This is because the car is so challenging to drive that it forces you to perfect your inputs. This is great for learning how to properly drive a race car, but can also be incredibly frustrating.
No, come on. Damn it.
But I do promise that when you get it right, it is the most satisfying feeling in the world. So, to help us all expedite this learning process, I'll be using onboard video and telemetry from guest drivers and myself to compare driving styles and techniques. This analysis will help us all to better understand how to extract more performance from our Porsche Cup car. If you haven't seen the first video in this series, that might be a good time to check it out before we get too deep into this one. This week, we'll be heading to Oulton Park, a twisty circuit located in England, where we'll be using these two tight right-handers to discuss maximizing low-speed corner exits to help you not only gain lap time, but also set up passes and defend your position. When trying to maximize low-speed corner exits, it's essential to understand the dynamics of the cars we're driving. In this case, the Porsche Cup car, coming in at 2,800 pounds, 1,300 kilograms, with 485 horsepower and no traction control, is an absolute beast. Being able to put down the power smoothly is the key to having good corner exits. And in order to understand how to put the power down smoothly, we have to think about how the tire is working through the corner. So let's look at one of the rear tires off of our Porsche Cup car. This tire, at any given moment, has an amount of grip available to it. And this grip can be used to do things like accelerate, decelerate, or corner. And if you don't use enough of it, there'll be some grip left over to do other things. But there are obviously instances where you try to use more grip than the tire will allow you to. In this case, the tire starts to slide. The classic case of trying to accelerate harder than your tire will allow is a burnout. So obviously when we ask too much of a tire, it begins to slide. So let's look back at our previous graphic, and we'll get rid of decelerating because you're obviously not accelerating and decelerating both on corner exit. And we'll get rid of available grip too because we want to use as much grip as the tire will allow in order to maximize our speed through the corner. So now we're just thinking about accelerating and cornering and how that relates to our steering angle and our corner exits. The more we turn our car and turn the steering wheel, the more grip we use from our rear tires for cornering and thus cannot be used for accelerating. However, when we open up that steering wheel angle, we use less grip for cornering, so we have more grip to accelerate. So obviously here, the lesson is, the earlier we can open up our hands, the harder we can accelerate out of the corners without losing rear grip and sliding. With this in mind, we will first use onboard video to compare steering wheel angles on corner exit and how this relates to throttle. And I'll briefly describe one technique that you can use to help open those hands up on corner exit. We will then finally dive into the data to determine how much time you could potentially actually be losing on corner exit, and we'll go into a separate technique you can use to gain back that time lost. Let's start this comparison by looking at my onboard video of this tight 180-degree hairpin. And the first thing I want you to note is that I'm using full lock, trying to get the car to turn as much as possible, and let's look at this red curb on the right here, and where my hands are on the exit of it. So right when I get to the end of this curb, my hands are about a 45-degree angle, I would say, and I'm at about 90% throttle. Just kind of unwinding my hand on the exit as we talked about, and then I kind of straddle this exit curb and get to full throttle. So let's compare that to our guest driver now. So now if we look at our guest driver, we see he takes a really nice tight line, again using full lock to turn the steering wheel as much as he can. But let's look here at the end of this red exit curb where he's at. So when we get to the end of this red exit curb, only at about 50% throttle, and his steering wheel is still fully cranked. So if we compare the two of ours, I'm at about 45 degrees here, he's at about 90 degrees, I'm able to be at 90% throttle, he's only at about 50% throttle. So this is what I was kind of talking about. If you're able to open up your hands earlier, you'll be able to get back to throttle sooner, and this will give you a faster exit. And if we continue the video, we'll get to the lowest hanging fruit of how you can solve this problem. Some of you are now screaming at your screen exactly why you think this person's not able to open their hands sooner, and that's because they didn't let the car run out on the exit curb as far as I did. I opened my hands up sooner and used more of that exit straddling that curb there, whereas this guest driver did not. And that's definitely the first place to look if you can't open your hands up soon enough is, are you using the full road? And actually, This may sound like an easy fix, but oftentimes you can find yourself wanting to do that but not able to. So my first suggestion on how to fix this problem is looking further up the road on corner exit. Although you can't see where our eyes are looking in these replays, I do record my live streams, my races. And I know you can't exactly see where my eyes are looking in this video, but I can guarantee you as soon as the exit curb comes into my vision, I'm working to look at it and get my eyes up the road because this will automatically open my hands on corner exit. And I know this will be challenging for you, especially in corners like this if you don't have VR. I don't really know what to say, but just try to think about looking up the road as far as you can. Now let's zoom ahead from the tight right-hander to this right-left-right chicane. And this will be a good demonstration that simply looking up the road further can't always cure your exit issues. And we'll actually have to dig into the data to figure out what's really going on here. So as we come up to this right-hander, going onto a long straight, you can see you get a nice turn in, get the car all the way over that curb, and right about at exit, I'm at about 90 degrees with about 50% throttle, and then I'm able to work my way out to just before we hit the exit curb, basically full throttle, hands at about 15 degrees, run out to the exit curb. Looking now at the guest driver, they turn in at a similar spot to what I do. Get all the way over to this exit curb, but let's look at their steering wheel angle. They have definitely more steering angle than I had at the apex, and they have slightly less throttle. And as they work their way towards the exit curb, we can see that just before the exit curb, when I was just about at full throttle, they're at maybe 65-70% throttle and still with at least 45-degree angle on their steering wheel. And they try to go back to full throttle, but the car kicks out and they lose rear grip. They start to slide because they try to get back to full throttle too soon. So to really understand why this is happening, let's look at the data. So briefly, before we get too deep into the data, let me just talk you through first what we're actually looking at here. So this is several laps around Oulton Park. You can see these dotted lines here tell us that this is where the lap starts and ends. And we'll zoom in on a corner here to get an idea of what this data is telling us. So this first green line on the bottom is our throttle. Up here is 100% and down here is 0%. So basically we see we're coming into this corner, we're on the throttle, and then we lift off the throttle. This red line is the next line above it, and that's the brake. So this is telling us that here we're braking at maximum force when we're off throttle. So that makes sense. If we're getting ready for a corner, we lift off the throttle, hit the brake, and then we have our steering wheel angle above it in this blue. It's telling us that we're steering at maximum steering, so we're turning -1 radians, whatever that means. We have a maximum steering here, obviously as we're off the brake, getting on the throttle, maximum steering. And then the line above it is our speed, so we're at top speed here, coming to this corner, and then we lift off, hit the brake, our speed slows down and we're on the brake, and then right here is our minimum speed for the corner. Minimum speed is the same as maximum turning angle, that makes sense, and then we get back to throttle and speed up on the exit. So that's basically what we have here. We have a corner where we lift off the throttle here, hit the brake here, get our maximum turning here and minimum speed here, and then exit and get back to throttle. I want you to notice also in this top left-hand corner, we see all of the different values. This will be helpful because as I click through different portions of this graph, we will see in the top left corner what these values are. So finally, we'll get to comparing our data. My data is the yellow, and our guest drivers is the blue. And the lines represent the same things, although they're different colors. So bottom is throttle, then we have brake, steering, and then speed on top. And then there is one slight change where there's this new line through the middle, and that's the difference in our lap time. So positive slope means I'm gaining time on the driver behind, negative slope means that they're gaining time on me, and then a flat line means that we are neither gaining nor losing time. And lastly, one thing I forgot to mention is the x-axis on bottom is distance traveled. So what we're looking at here is a comparison of the right, left, right chicane. So first of all, let's look at how much time is lost by the guest driver on corner exit, and then we'll figure out how this happened. So let's just zoom out here, and if we look at, this is where my apex is, and I'm getting back to throttle. So here, the time difference is about 0.68 seconds. And then by the time we lift off for the next corner, that's ballooned up to 0.92 seconds. So about a quarter of a second lost on corner exit. So if we zoom back in here, we can see that the guest driver gets the throttle earlier, but kind of just maintains this throttle, whereas I'm later to get to throttle, but I'm able to get back more aggressively. And if we see here, we can look at our steering angle and see that I'm turning for much less time than our guest driver is. So what this tells me is they're trying to get to throttle earlier, But what they're doing is they're actually inducing understeer. So if we look at the apex, they're carrying more speed than I am at the apex. So while they initially get more speed by getting back to the throttle earlier, what this does is it stops the car turning as much. It can't rotate, whereas I let the car rotate more. So I get more turning in earlier, and I'm able to get back to throttle more aggressively here on corner exit. Whereas they get back to throttle sooner, but they have to sit through the corner because they didn't allow the car to turn as much. So this is the classic adage, slow in, fast out. So tying this all together with last week, by getting to throttle earlier, that weight that was on the nose when he was trying to turn has now shifted to the rear tires. So he's given the rear tires less grip. But we see the steering wheel angle is still increasing, so the front tires have less and less grip, but he's trying harder and harder to turn them. This is, again, a classic case of understeer. Whereas I'm able to stay off the throttle, let the car turn, let the front tires do their work, and as I increase throttle, my steering wheel angle is opening up. And because his steering wheel angle is not able to open up, he is not able to get back to throttle. So if you find yourself losing time on corner exit, but you know that you're using all the track, slowing down your mid-corner so you can get back to throttle more aggressively earlier might be your solution. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any techniques that you've learned over the years about improving your corner exits, I'd love to hear them. I'd also like to know if you appreciated me getting into the data here, or if you preferred the onboards, or if it was nice to have a combination of both of them. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.